of you guys sent me this video from Geography by Geoff, so I hope we don't get blocked. We just want to share the vibes.
What if I told you that one of the world's
Brazilian
largest
community.
countries, covering nearly half a continent, has almost no mountains? Or that this same country is home to both the largest Japanese city outside of Japan and
I have no mountains in Brazil? What are you talking about, really?
the most uncontacted tribes on Earth? From a river so powerful it dilutes the Atlantic Ocean to a massive capital city built from scratch in the wilderness, here are 15 incredible geography facts you never knew about Brazil.
Maybe this is the good time I get convinced to move to Brazil. Let's go.
It's difficult to overstate Brazil's sheer size. At over 8.5 million square kilometers, it's the 5th largest country in the world and larger than the contiguous United States.
That's what I was gonna say. It's like literally like without Alaska, it's like bigger than the United States, man. Wow. The Mercator map, right? The stretching of the corners, which make the hemispheres, the corners bigger, right? Because Brazil is in the middle in the thing, might look a little bit smaller, but in fact it's a massive country, man. It's huge.
Colossal landmass covers a staggering 47% of the entire South American continent. Because of its scale, Brazil spans 4 different time zones, from its Atlantic islands in the east to the state of Acre bordering Peru in the west. This vast territory also hosts an incredible variety of climates and biomes, from the dry, desert-like Sertão in the northeast, to the temperate highlands of the south, to the flooded grasslands of the Pantanal. But its most famous biome, the Amazon, is so large that the rainforest within Brazil alone is the size of Western Europe.
Wow, that's impressive, man.
While the Nile in Africa is slightly longer, the Amazon River is the undisputed king of all rivers by sheer power and volume. Flowing from the Andes to the Atlantic, the Amazon's drainage basin covers about 40% of South America. It covers more water than the next 7 largest rivers combined. On average, it discharges over 200,000 cubic meters of water into the Atlantic Ocean every single second.
Thanks to the Andes and the mountains there, which is probably, this is the part on the east, the west, with richer with mountains peak and obviously snow and fresh water.
Enough to fill over 83 Olympic-sized swimming pools. This freshwater torrent is so immense that it creates a plume that covers 1 million square kilometers. The river and its basin are also a world unto themselves, containing 1 in 10 known species on Earth.
Wow.
Despite its massive area, Brazil is a relatively low-lying country. It completely lacks the towering snow-capped peaks characteristic of its Andean neighbors like Chile, Argentina, and Peru. This is because Brazil sits on the ancient, stable South American plate, far from the tectonic collisions that build mountains. The country's highest point, Mist Peak, is a modest 2,995 meters. Located on the border with Venezuela, it's so remote and often shrouded in clouds that it's...
I mean, that's not so small. I mean, of course, it's not huge, but in Europe, that would be considered pretty massive mountain, considering like the Monte Bianco. It's like, what, 4 kilometers or something?
Status as Brazil's highest point wasn't even confirmed until a survey in the 1960s. Instead, most of the country consists of highlands, plateaus, and vast lowland basins.
I have to say, I like mountains, so I live in the Netherlands and I'm a little bit fed up with flatness, so mountains would be a nice addition.
Brazil's relationship with the Atlantic Ocean defines its history, culture, and economy. It possesses one of the longest continuous coastlines in the world, stretching an uninterrupted 7,491 kilometers. This immense coastline is incredibly diverse. It features world-famous beaches like Copacabana and Ipanema in Rio de Janeiro, dense mangrove forests in the northeast, the unique delta of the Parnaíba River, and the subtropical lagoons of the south. This coastal zone is also the country's economic and demographic heartland. The vast majority of Brazil's population and its largest cities, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Salvador, and Recife, are all located near or on the coast, a legacy that began with the first colonial port settlements.
So it's a little bit like I thought, you know, it's a little bit like Australia. It's
deep in the heart of South America lies one of Earth's most...
But mostly it's inhabited, even though it's like 200 million people, but most of the land, basically it's empty. It's most of the people are concentrated on the coast.
Spectacular and overlooked ecosystems. The Pantanal, spanning over 140,000 square kilometers across western Brazil and into Bolivia and Paraguay,
Italy,
it's
right?
the world's largest tropical wetland. The Pantanal is not a permanent swamp. It's a vast alluvial plain that undergoes a dramatic seasonal flood. During the rainy season, over 80% of the area is submerged, creating a watery paradise. When the water recedes in the dry season, it strands aquatic life in small pools, creating an incredible buffet for one of the highest concentrations of wildlife on the planet.
Man, it's massive when you see here on the side where the plateau of mountains start, like the difference in height, it's incredible, man.
Including jaguars, giant otters, capybaras, and hundreds of bird species. By the way, if you love geography and want to dive deeper into the stories of places people love, come join me over on Substack. Every week, I publish additional articles and insights that go beyond the videos, exploring the fascinating details of our planet. It's the perfect companion for anyone curious about this crazy world we live in. Oh, and best of all, it's 100% free to subscribe. So sign up using the link in the description below, or just scan the QR code that's been on your screen this whole time.
Man, I need some QR codes for something. I don't know what.
A look at a map of South America reveals Brazil's dominant geographic position. It shares a border with 10 different countries and territories: French Guiana, and therefore France itself, Suriname, Guyana, Venezuela, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, Argentina, Paraguay, and Uruguay. This gives Brazil the third highest number of land borders in the world after China and Russia. The only two South American nations it doesn't touch are Chile and Ecuador, which are geographically separated from it by the Andes Mountains and other countries. This extensive network of borders, stretching over 16,000 kilometers, creates a complex web of trade relationships and geopolitical challenges that have shaped Brazil's foreign policy for centuries. For most of its history, Brazil's capital was on the coast. First, it was Salvador, the heart of the northeastern sugar plantations. Then it was Rio de Janeiro, the bustling port for coffee and gold. But in the 1950s, Brazil embarked on one of the 20th century's most ambitious urban planning projects, building a new capital, Brasilia, from nothing in the remote, empty interior. The goal was to develop the country's vast inland territory and move the center of power away from the crowded coast. Designed by Lucio Costa and Oscar Niemeyer, the city's futuristic pilot plan is shaped like an airplane and is a masterpiece of modernist architecture. So unique, it was named a...
Man, that looks like really like 60s. Eh? Like what in the 60s they imagined like modernism to look like.
Why does Brazil speak Portuguese while nearly all of its neighbors speak Spanish? The answer lies in a 500-year-old treaty. In 1494, to prevent a war between two great maritime powers, the Pope brokered the Treaty of Tordesillas. This treaty drew a line of demarcation down the globe, 370 leagues west of the Cape Verde Islands. Spain was granted all newly discovered lands to the west of this line, and Portugal was granted all lands to the east. At the time, the Americas were barely known. It just so happened that this line cut through the eastern ridge of the South American continent, securing a foothold for Portugal when its explorers officially landed there in 1500. This single diplomatic line is the reason...
It's funny because already that much land, which doesn't look like much, right? But that's probably much bigger, probably 10 times bigger than Portugal was.
And Brazil exists as a distinct Portuguese-speaking nation. The country's very name comes from its first major export. When Portuguese explorers first arrived, they found vast forests of pau-brasil, or Brazilwood. This tree was incredibly valuable in 16th century Europe because its dense, reddish heartwood could be ground into a powder to create high-quality, deep red dye, a luxury commodity for coloring textiles. The land was initially named Terra de Santa Cruz, Land of the Holy Cross, but the trade in this redwood became so dominant that sailors and merchants simply began referring to the land as Terra do Brasil, the Land of Brazil. The resource was harvested so aggressively that the Brazilwood tree is now an endangered species, a living symbol of the nation's origin.
Wow, this is actually something I learned. So Brazil is actually this type of tree, and I love the red color in it, man. Wonderful. And also, you know what? It's crazy that I mean, I've been doing, you know, like reaction to Brazilian music and being exposed to Brazilian culture in that way for many years now, 4 or 5 years. And what is crazy, I was just out of the blue, it came to my head like Rio de Janeiro. And I'm like, oh, that's a river of January. Boom. Like, you know, all my life, Rio de Janeiro, it was synonymous with something exotic because I thought about the music and the beach and the weather and the beautiful, atmosphere. And then I was like, oh, wow, Rio de Janeiro. It's like, as a connotation of winter, even though, of course, Janeiro in January in Brazil, it's warm, it's summer.
While Brazil is the 7th most populous country in the world, its population of 213 million people is not spread out evenly.
Man, I mean, I have to say, like, it doesn't look like there's a lot of like third world stuff in Brazil. When I look at this looks incredibly modern, neat, wonderful. Looks like a great city. I think there's also a strange perception. Of course, probably there are places where it's poorer and all that kind of stuff still exists. But when I look at this, I'm like, wow, I'll move there.
13 million people is not spread out evenly. Brazil is a coastal nation at heart.
I'll move here,
the vast majority of its citizens, over 80%, live within 200 miles of the Atlantic Ocean. This is a historical legacy from its colonial past, which was based on coastal ports for exporting sugar, gold, and coffee. As a result, the southeast coastal plain, home to Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro, is one of the most densely populated places on Earth, while the enormous interior, especially the Amazon basin, is one of the least populated. The state of
I want to know also from my Brazilian audience, like, basically this is the forest, so it's also the weather, it's not friendly. So what do you do there? It's a little bit like Australia in the middle and the north. Basically, there's nobody because on the north it's all wet and rainy and the weather is impossible. In the middle is the desert, so most people live in the south, in the southeast, on the coast anyway, on the coast also on the west. So I suppose here's the case for Brazil as well, that probably this whole area here, there's not much going on, which is immense. It's immense.
Amazonas, for example, is larger than France, Spain, and Germany combined, but has a population of only 4 million people.
Wow, that's crazy. Wow.
The city of Sao Paulo is a prime example of Brazil's melting pot culture. It's home to the largest population of people of Japanese descent anywhere in the world outside of Japan.
This is a very fascinating fact that I've learned about Brazil that I really didn't know, and it's amazing. Also, of course, it's like a little bit Argentina. The basic Argentina mostly are Italian, right?
This community's origin begins in 1908, when the Casado Maru ship arrived carrying the first Japanese immigrants, who came to work on Brazil's booming coffee plantations. Today, there are over 1.5 million Japanese immigrants and their descendants in Brazil, and their influence is most visible in Sao Paulo's Liberdade district. Once predominantly a Japanese neighborhood, it's now a pan-Asian hub, famous for its red torii gates, Japanese gardens, markets, and restaurants showcasing the deep cultural impact of the...
You know what? I love Japan. I really love Japan. I always thought like I wanted to go live in Japan also because it's fascinating. I grew up a lot with Japanese culture because of animation and cartoons in Italy. So maybe I could combine the two of them. I go live right there. So I live in Brazil with the Japanese community around. Beautiful melting pot.
It's impossible to talk about Brazil's economy or culture without mentioning coffee. Brazil isn't just a coffee producer. It's been the world's single largest producer of coffee for more than 150 consecutive years. The coffee cycle of the 19th and early 20th centuries built immense fortunes, funded the country's first wave of industrialization, and held massive political power. Today, Brazil is still responsible for over a third of the entire world's coffee supply, from mass market beans to the high-end specialty Arabica. The scale of its production is so vast that droughts or frosts in Brazil's coffee-growing regions can single-handedly cause global coffee prices to spike, affecting the cost of your morning cup thousands of miles away.
Man, I gotta find myself some producer of coffee there in Brazil. I always wanted to make my own brand of coffee. I love coffee. Maybe I should get in contact. Really, that would be really nice. Some great Brazilian coffee, huh? With my face on. Be an idea. I love it.
Deep within the most remote corners of the Brazilian Amazon live the last truly isolated people on Earth. Brazil is believed to be home to the highest number of uncontacted tribes in the world, with its government agency for indigenous affairs estimating there could be more than 100 such groups. Uncontacted means they have no sustained, peaceful contact with the outside world, and Brazil's official policy is one of no contact, aiming to protect these groups from diseases, like the flu, to which they have no immunity. These tribes, living in protected indigenous territories, face constant and severe threats from illegal loggers, miners, and drug traffickers, making their survival a critical human rights emergency.
Man, you know that this is really an aspect of Brazilian culture that it's impressive in the way that we are in 2026 almost, and there you have people living as if maybe it was hunter-gatherer time, even before like agriculture. So we're talking about people that almost are living the same way as our ancestor in the megafauna. Maybe I don't want to go too much back, let's say before the last ice age, maybe 13,000 years ago. That's incredible in that way, man. And honestly, are we keeping them for embracing modern civilization? You know, if I was living in the dark like that, and maybe I was given the chance to know what's behind the curtain, what's, you know, possible, maybe I would say like, hey man, I'm freaking tired of, you know, drinking water or whatever, and some of us die of giardia. Maybe I do want to have like tap water, clean, nice. I like the heater, ice in my tea.
Sao Paulo is not just Brazil's largest city, it's the largest and most populous city in the entire southern hemisphere, with a population of over 12 million in the city proper and more than 22 million in its greater.
Man, that's literally more people just in the part there. It's almost more people than the Netherlands where I live. I think the whole of Netherlands is like 70 million people. That's crazy, man. That's a lot of people though.
Metropolitan area, Sao Paulo is one of the planet's 10 largest megacities. It's the undisputed financial, economic, and industrial heart of Brazil and one of the most important alpha global cities. This immense size creates significant challenges like legendary traffic jams, but it also fuels an incredibly dynamic cultural scene. Sao Paulo.
What I've learned about Sao Paulo already many years ago is that the traffic was so bad that basically helicopters, you know, on top of those skyscrapers, it's very common, like sort of taxi helicopters for, not for normal people, but there is a huge traffic of helicopters going there, probably more than other cities because of the traffic.
Paulo is a global hub for fine dining, music, art, and fashion, a sprawling concrete jungle that never sleeps. Brazil is a world leader in renewable energy, thanks almost entirely to the power of its massive rivers. The crown jewel of this energy system is the Itaipu Dam, a colossal hydroelectric project built on the Parana River, which forms the border between Brazil and Paraguay. When it was completed in 1984, it was the largest power plant on Earth. While it has since been surpassed in capacity by China's Three Gorges Dam, Itaipu remains a champion of efficiency, often producing more actual electricity per year. It's a binational project that provides about 10% of all of Brazil's electricity and an incredible 90% of neighboring Paraguay's, making it a true wonder of modern engineering. As the largest country in South America and one of the largest in the entire world, we don't often speak enough about Brazil. But truly, in nearly every aspect, it is one of the most important and fascinating countries on Earth.
Man, actually, when I look at it this way, you know, Brazil still has so much potential, honestly. Considering also China and those other countries, India, I think Brazil is just scratching the surface.